All right, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Doug Sandler from Turnkey Podcast on the West Coast and on the right coast. Or would that be yeah, that's the right coast because the left coast is the West Coast, all the way down in wonderful, warm Florida. Mr. John Browning, good to have you back and welcome to your new year and welcome to you.
Yeah, it's been a blustery, cold start actually to our year down here in Florida. Man, it's down in the 50s. Oh my
What
goodness, we
the
are
heck?
just about, frozen down here.
Hey, we actually woke up with frost on our grass here in Southern California. That's a rarity that is here, but that means we're expecting a damp and wet winter time here in January as we start to record these episodes.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I guess all the way up the East Coast right now, it's just super windy and blustery, and we had a tornado down in Fort Lauderdale just this past weekend. It's like really strange weather, but always keeps it interesting.
Hey,
You know,
John,
when I
yeah,
was living in Hawaii, it was 70 degrees and breezy every
I was
single
going to say
day.
you've lived the life of warmth already. Now you have to deal with the uncertainty of hurricane season, which is past, but at the same time, all the other wonderful things that you have, like cat-sized mosquitoes and stuff
Right.
in
Yep.
Florida. Hey, one of the things I noticed on your on the signature line of your email, and then we'll get into today's topic. Thank you for our listening audience bearing with us as we get rolling in the 2024 timeframe. I love it. You have John Browning, MBA, CSA. Got those. Those are fairly standard, and I like that. Although getting those degrees and those certifications is not an easy thing. So I don't mean to dismiss it just as that's an easy thing. Financial planner, and then I love what you have right next to that: best-selling author and professional speaker. I mean, both of those things are it was decades or years ago that certified financial planner or financial planner or MBA, it was good enough. And now I find that every little thing that you can add on to your name kind of separates you from the rest of them. So can you just share just for just a quick second why you even wrote a book to begin with, and then we'll get into today's topic. But I'm just really curious because what the whole book idea is about, because I think there's probably a lot of people in our audience that are like, I have a book in me, I want to be able to write that. Why did you write a book?
Well, talk about a book being in you, I think is the key thing, right? Is I've had a unique set of circumstances, as has everyone, right? And I think people find it interesting that I was born in West Virginia, right? People don't often think of Wall Street guys coming from West Virginia, but we
True.
do.
Yep.
And I had a journey where I did the whole Wall Street thing, and I was working my 18, 20, a few times even 24 hours per day. And then I kind of worked my way up the ladder, and on 9/11, I was working on the trading desk at Morgan Stanley, and we were doing risk management, same as any other day. And I had Bank of New York in one ear, and I had back then it was the Dean Witter side of Morgan Stanley was in this year.
Right.
And you would literally do this. You wouldn't, you would talk to one, then talk to the other, and there was this boom.
Mm.
And I heard it in both ears, and we didn't have any idea what had happened. The guy in Bank of New York said it looks like a ticker tape parade because he saw all the papers and stuff flying. We had no idea, and then of course it came on the news. I was
Wow.
fortunate that day to be in Chicago. Fast forward, being an executive in Morgan Stanley and being in Chicago, guess what role I played for the next year, right? It was
Mm.
a lot of putting things back together and what are we going to do? And so it was a blur, but a year later, roughly, it was July. I was in the same hotel that I'd always been in. I always go to the same, at least when you travel a lot, you try and go to the same hotels.
Yeah, of
One
course.
constant thing. It was the Millennium Hilton. It was really kind of right across the street from the rubble. And I'd had one of those days uptown, downtown, across the river in New Jersey. Those of you who know New York understand that. It started at 5 a.m. and it was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night.
Mm.
Dark, alone in my Wall Street attire, suit, tie, hot, sweaty. Why am I doing this? I have 6 children at home. I've missed first pitches.
Yeah.
I have missed
Yeah.
a wrestling meet or two. I was building I was building my portfolio, and I was not building my life, hence the
Right.
name of the book.
Right.
And I wanted to share that as much as I could with other people and share the idea that it's complex. It's not just complicated. It's complex if you do it right, to do the planning that you need to really build a life. And at the end of the day, you don't you don't take it with you.
Right.
The only thing you talk to somebody who's 84, 85, 90 years old, they don't talk about how much money they have. Most of them don't care. Warren Buffett doesn't care, right? I mean, it's nice, right? And he'll tell you it's nice, but he's giving it all away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So building a life and not a portfolio, that's what the book is about. And that's why I wrote it.
Well, it's such a significant part of not only the topic that we're going to talk about today, but understanding, the significance of really taking stock in what is important in your life. And sometimes those things that we try to do ourselves, the DIYers that are out there that toil over the 2 or 3% extra that they may get or may not get by doing their own thing and maybe saving the what they consider saving the fee or saving the charges, oftentimes aren't, you know you're building your portfolio and you're not focused on building your life. And today I want to talk just for a few minutes, if we could, just about this whole longevity thing. How long do we need to stay in the market? What is the market really all about when it comes to our investments? What should our outlook be when we actually when we're sitting down across the table from somebody like yourself and just getting advice? What are we thinking about? And it's funny because I just had this conversation today with my next door neighbor just about, like, well, what's the horizon? What does it look like? What am I looking for? What am I shooting for? What are my goals for the next 12 months? We're in January. It's a perfect time to start talking about, this. So I'm open to your perspective on this longevity subject and exactly what you meant by it.
Yeah, it is the single most, in every survey that's been done that I know of, it's the single biggest fear of people in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, is fear of running out of money in retirement. It just is, and it has been for a long time. And the thing is, if you're 40 years old, so this is according to the insurance actuarial tables, and this is a little bit dated information, but it's pretty close. So if you're 40 right now,
Mm-hmm.
you can expect to live into at least your late 70s or 80s on the average. Okay.
Right.
And you can drown in a river that's an average of 2 inches deep, right?
I got a bus with my name on it.
Yeah, right,
It's got
exactly.
to crossing the street, get hit by the bus.
Right. And then if you're a 50-year-old, you can expect to live into your mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So you've made it to 50, right? That's why that number changes. You've made it to 50. There's a
Right.
higher chance you're going to make it into your 80s.
Okay.
If you're a 60-year-old, you can expect to live into your late 80s and into your 90s. If you've made it that far, it's highly likely you're going to make it a lot further.
Okay.
And I have, I've got a client, 94 years old, still going strong,
Right. Right.
and I've got 84-year-old clients, I've got 82-year-old clients, and I also have 18-year-old clients.
Yeah,
So
but don't you get your fair share of people saying, "Well, it's okay. My lifestyle won't be the same in my 80s as it is in my
yes.
50s or 60s, and I got the greatest annuity under the sun, which is Social Security, that's going to be at my back. Yeah, I have some savings, but do I need to really focus on the look? I don't know. I can't plan when I'm going to die. I could die at 70, or I could die when I'm 95, or I could die tomorrow, with that bus that's got my name on it. How do you even begin to plan when you really don't know that huge variable, which is how long are you going to live?
And this is what I try and tell people, and we have this conversation with people. Almost no one in their, say, once you get to in your 70s or 80s, everybody thinks you're going to die tomorrow, right? It just, oh, I don't know much longer. I don't know much longer, especially, in your 70s. Oh, I'm not going to buy green bananas. That's what my dad always says. I
Forget
don't buy
that
green bananas.
30-year mortgage.
He's been saying that for 10 years, right?
Right.
And the thing is, you know what? If you stay active and you're still enjoying life, and we'll talk about this in another episode soon. I think about the idea of what is retirement, right?
Right.
Beyond
Right.
the financials, what is it? What is retirement? How do you prepare for that? But if you're enjoying life, if you're doing things you want to do, even if that means reading a book curled up by the fire in your cabin in the mountains,
Right.
even if it's not a lot of physical activity, if you're enjoying life, you're highly likely to keep on living for a good long time. And I tell people, there used to be the old adage, retire with zero and you've won, right? You won the game. Problem with that is you don't know when that is, right?
Right.
To
Right.
your point.
Right.
I always tell people, retire with something, leave something. If you don't have kids or family, then leave it to the save the whales or whatever it is that you really love. Because we all are passionate about something. But don't be afraid every single day when you get up. Oh, I can't do that. I'd love to do this, but I can't because I don't have the $5 or I don't have the $100 or 1,000 or whatever it is. So plan for dying with something, just not a whole boatload, right?
All
That's
right.
how you plan for it.
All right. All right. So so how do you, so with that huge variable that is at our back that we don't see right now, which is the amount of time that you have, how do you, you can't play the market like you can't play your life. How do you you
Right.
know, how do you get to a point where you can provide advice when you have a moving target that we are looking for?
And that all has to do with in your younger years before you're using it to replace your paycheck, before you're using your assets to replace your paycheck, you go for some of those growthy items, but as you get closer and not right when you need to start taking it, right?
Right, right.
But say 5 years ish before, 5 and certainly 3 years before you hit that point where you're going to start paying yourself instead of getting a paycheck from someone else,
Mm-hmm.
and including hanging up a small business. Some of you don't get a paycheck, but you pay yourself, right?
Right.
Through your business. And you don't want to do that business forever. You want to sell that business or whatever. You get within 3 years, 5 years of that, you want to start shifting your portfolio to one that starts to generate cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And people have heard me say this before. It's not cash that's king. It's not assets that are king. I know people who have millions upon millions of dollars in assets that they can't get to. And you cannot spend a house, you cannot spend a building, you cannot even really spend a business. You got to convert that into not just cash, but cash flow that is surpassing inflation and surpassing your inflation, not the headline CPI inflation, but your personal inflation.
Any specific we're not providing financial advice here, but any specific vehicles that you can think of when it comes to something that provides you cash flow in that retirement time, or in that horizon when you're looking at the horizon 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, especially with the bond market not providing the income that a lot of people are going to need. So that's that traditional, Apple or JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs issues a bond and then they pay you quarterly or semi-annual interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
That market can be really difficult to support yourself on. The idea that something like an annuity, you mentioned Social Security,
Mm-hmm.
that's the government annuity that most of us have participated in. And there's, of course, the debate, will it be there and everything else. Trust me, folks, people in office will support their voters. The people that vote them in the office are often on Social Security. It's a very
hard
big portion
hard
of
pressed
the
to see it
population.
completely disappear overnight is what you're saying. It
Right.
might be a gradual decrease, or it might be they extend out the length, but for a full retirement they're going to do a but I think, in my opinion, again just my opinion, I don't know what I'm, professionally where it stands, but I can't imagine it going away. I can't imagine it being reduced or extended beyond where it is right now.
Already happened, right, on that front.
Right,
Sure.
right,
If
right.
you're younger, you may, but you'll have a runway. You'll be able to plan for it. So you've got that annuity, but having another annuity, and annuities get a bad rap, a bad name, because frankly, in the past history, there have been some bad annuity products out there. But
Mm-hmm.
annuities, um, universal life policies, insurance policies are fantastic ways to create income and potentially tax free income.
Yeah.
That's another big thing that a lot of people don't spend enough time planning for which portion is going to be a taxable income to me versus tax free. And there's a balance. You don't want to have it all tax free, actually, believe it or not. And there's a reason for that. But you want to have the majority of it be tax free when you hit retirement. And that can be structuring
All right.
your investments and your cash flow the right way can be way more valuable than beating the market, right? Than getting a couple extra percentage points each year.
Actually, we're even gonna come back. I think it's a great topic that we could have at a future episode in a few weeks. The taxable versus tax-free income that you can have in retirement. It's a subject that I am fascinated about. Like, why in the world would anybody want to have, a taxable income in retirement? But I know that there are answers, positive answers to why all of those things should be done. What am I missing though about longevity? Is there anything that you want to share before we head out of here for today's episode?
The number one thing I want people to remember and think about is when you're younger, you think about that old song of 1991. You and I remember that. I'm gonna live forever. Remember that? We all
Yeah,
feel that way,
of
right?
course. Fame.
Yeah, Fame. Yeah, it was a great show too, by the way. But we all feel that way, and it kind of goes. In your 20s, you're going to live forever. Your 30s, you're kind of going to live forever. In your 40s, you start thinking about it because, frankly, unfortunately, some of your friends have, maybe
Right.
they've gotten cancer, or maybe they've passed away in a car accident. Things happen, and we don't like to think that's going to happen to us. It only happens to other people, right? And then you get to be 50 and 60 and 70, and then you hit 60, late 60s and 70s, and you start thinking, I'm going to die tomorrow. That's not the case either. That's just as much not the case as when you were 20 thinking you were going to live forever.
Right.
You're actually, per those statistics I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the older you are, the more likely it is that you're going to have more longevity. So you need to plan for longer than you think you might be alive.
All right. All right.
That's our parting message today.
All right, good advice. Couple of pieces of information I want everybody that's in our listening audience to take away from this. Number one, yes, John Browning does have a best-selling book. We want you to get a copy of that book. The link to the book will be directly in the show notes. If you want to get any information about any of the stuff that we talked about today and you want to talk directly to John, text the word life, LIFE, to this number. Are you ready? You got your pencil ready to go? Does anybody even have a pencil anymore? I don't even know.
I don't have one. I have some
I,
pens.
I
No.
I have a tablet. I don't know about a pen or pad of paper, but text the word life to 321-421-5213. There'll be some questions that you'll answer through the texting app that'll be available to you. You'll get in touch with John and his entire group that way. Text the word life again to 321-421-5213. Any final words before we depart?
See you next week.
See you guys next week. Thanks again. See you, John.